Ladies and gentlemen, now forming at the north end of Kyle Field, the nationally famous Fightin' Texas Aggie Band.
The university and the Aggie Band have meant so much to him. I mean, it has shaped him into what he is now. I mean, he's never left Texas A&M since he came here as a student. His story is a unique one because he went straight from a student, straight to being on the staff, straight to being a director. What he brought to the band for the last 40 years, you just can't really replace that.
Well, it was August the 21st, 1977. It was hot as hell here in College Station. And we finally made it to Lewis Street, right behind the Adams Band Hall, and we unloaded my footlocker, my bass trombone case, and a electric typewriter. I was the rich guy on the second floor of Dormitory 11. Daddy and I hadn't talked a whole lot about me coming to A&M other than I wasn't ready academically. He wanted me to go into the Army for a couple of years so I could mature and all that. But I just had to come up here because I wanted to be in the Aggie Band. And so he dropped me off, and we sat there and had a little visit. And he said, "Now, Jay, you remember you're the one that wanted to come to A&M. You're the one that wanted to be in the Corps and be in the Aggie Band. You've been wanting to do that since you were 10 years old. But I'm just going to tell you, don't call home crying to me, because you're not going to quit. You might flunk out, and I almost did twice while I was at A&M, but you're not going to quit." Just a week or so after we arrived, we were playing Kansas at Kyle Field. Kyle Field was AstroTurf in those days. And man, was it hot on that field, real hot. And we did our first drill, and I remember marching that drill. I remember what we played. I remember doing that four-step counter march on the south goal line as I snapped that King 5B Symphony bass trombone down, and I looked straight ahead, and I did that counter march, and I never looked back. And that was 43 football seasons ago. And it was an exhilarating time. It was a time to grow up, and it was a time to kind of find out who you were and what you're made of. And we did. I did not qualify to be a Ross Volunteer. I was not a drum major. I was not on the bugle rank. I was a right guide bass trombone player on the 24th rank. And I majored in mechanized agriculture at A&M. That was my second, maybe my third major, but I finally found something I could sink my teeth into. And I'd gotten to the position, it was about time to graduate, and I'd even interviewed and gotten a job with John Deere Company. And the day I graduated, this kid comes running out of the dorm. I'm out there with my parents. He said, "Colonel Haney needs to talk to you now." Of course, what's running through my mind is, can he still do something to me? What have I done that he found out about that I wasn't supposed to be doing? And there were a few of those things along the way, as you might imagine. And so we went to G. Riley White, and I graduated, and I go back over to see the band director, Colonel Joe Haney. And he told me a sad story about Major Mack, who got some bad news from his doctor, and he said, "I need someone to help me run the band." "Sir, I'm graduating. I've already got a job. I know all that. I've already gone to see John Coldis. We have a job for you here." And I never worked a day for John Deere. I took an opportunity of a lifetime. My dad was ticked off about it. I just spent $12,000 to educate you at A&M, and now you're telling me you're going to stay there and help Joe Haney run the band. He said, "What do you know about that?" "Nothing. Not one thing. Aside from I can play my horn pretty well." He goes, "Well, you've never listened to me before, so why should you start now?" And so I accepted the job, and I knew that I must be doing the right thing. That was a long time ago.
Jay and I have worked together for 28 years. And of course, you know, Jay is kind of the spiritual leader of the organization. So Jay has so much knowledge of things, of how they've worked in the past and why we do what we do and why the traditions work and all of those kind of things. So he's been invaluable.
The really important traditions of the Aggie Band can be found on the outside of this building. Dignity, self-discipline, and enduring pride. What Aggie Band members go through during their time in the Aggie Band helps them to pay close attention to the most minute details. It serves them quite well in their chosen professions.
Well, there's a lot of great Aggie traditions, obviously Silver Taps and Muster. And the Aggie Band is one of those pieces, but Jay's voice is a part that kicks it all off, that lets people know this is special, get ready to be entertained.
In 1981, at the first home football game, Joe Haney handed me the information. He said, "This is your job to announce the band." Previously, there were other people who had done that, but I kind of made it my own, and it was one of those responsibilities that I had that I took great pride in, and it has, like everything else, has kind of evolved some over the years. And I consider that a very important role that I play, because that announcement is not about me. That is about those Texas Aggies assembled in the north end zone of whatever stadium we happen to be performing in that particular day. Ladies and gentlemen, this halftime drill is dedicated to the senior cadets of the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band, class of 21, who march in their final performance on Kyle Field.
I don't think he realized how important that was. I think Colonel Brewer was just always doing his Colonel Brewer thing, And as it's become more iconic through the years, I think he was very pleased with the recognition of how important that the performances were of the band to the students.
Yeah, I never heard students reciting the now forming at the north end of Kyle Field, and particularly the end of it, Fightin' Texas Aggie Band. I didn't know that happened until a classmate told me that. He said, "Jay, do you know these students imitate that?" I said, "Really? I can't hear anything up where I am." And if I wasn't paying attention to it, because I was focusing myself on what was happening on the field. And now, formed at the north end of Kyle Field, the nationally famous Fightin' Texas Aggie Band. That's unbelievable. And I believe it just shows the students' admiration of their marching band on this campus. For the past 40 years as a voice of the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band, this is Colonel J.O. Brewer, 81, signing off. That LSU game the other night at Kyle Field was a very special time. My whole family was there, my son, my daughter, their spouses. My wife obviously was there. Lots of friends were there in the stands. And not to mention my Texas Aggie Band was there. And we're on this platform, and Ross Bjork presented myself and my family with the game football with my name on it and all of that. And after all the pictures and the videos, I said, "Ross, you have no idea what this football stands for in my family." I said, "My father would not have gotten to attend the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas had he not met at Stephen F. Austin High School a man by the name of Homer Norton, the head coach of the Texas Aggies, who invited him and a couple of his friends to come and be on the football team. That's how my dad got to go to college. So this football is kind of a circle complete for our family. And I couldn't be any more honored to be presented this game football on behalf of my family and on behalf of the Fightin' Texas Aggie Band. This is just unbelievable. Again, little guy from Channel View, Texas. Who would have ever thought?